Growing up with the PlayStation 2 and the Game Boy Color and Advance as my primary gaming systems dramatically shaped the way I play video games. The Game Boy was the perfect on-the-go gaming beast, building my appreciation for casual turn-based games that allowed me to move at my own pace, mainly Pokemon, from a very young age, as well as tiny games that didn't make huge demands, both of the hardware and of me when playing them. I took my Game Boys with me everywhere, from age 5 onward. Car rides, waiting for each passing street lamp to get a glimpse of what I was doing, waiting in line or at the doctor's offices, road trips, stays at grandparents, even school. My Game Boy and I were inseparable. The PlayStation 2, on the other hand, was a magical world of home TV gaming with great graphics and sound, split screen supported by so many games, and a massive library of varied and experimental titles. The ones I remember most, however, are the session games. SSX, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Gauntlet, ATV Off-Road Fury, Warriors games, Tekken, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, Need for Speed, Champions of Norwrath, and Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Plus, continuing to replay the Crash Bandicoot and Crash Team Racing games via the wonderful PS1 backwards compatibility. The PS2 was the ultimate session game machine. Games that you could quickly hop in and out of, have a good time, make a little progress towards something, but not feel like you were having to target finishing anything. Frankly, finishing the game would be kind of disappointing. There were plenty of great story games on the system too, but with my restricted game time and sharing of the console with family, session games were how I got my real game time in when I could. It took me a couple years to really figure out how to fit it into my life and truly appreciate it, but the Steam Deck has become a top-tier session game experience for me. A portable handheld just like my Game Boys as a kid, but with the power to run just about any game. It's a beast. I prefer to play big story games or visual masterpieces at my PC or on the TV with a console, but smaller games, the ones I reach for when I just want to hop in and out quickly between tasks, right before bed, or waiting on an appointment for my kiddo, those are what the Steam Deck is best at. These games are smaller, which usually means they take up less disk space and run smoother on the lower powered hardware in the deck. Plus, the suspend and resume feature on the deck means I have the freedom to hop in and out with even less friction than I've ever had before. The deck has enabled me to explore swaths of new small games that I never would have made time for before. It's also allowed me to accrue dozens upon dozens of hours of game time that I otherwise wouldn't have room for in my busy dad life. Roguelikes are the obvious ones that come to mind, and there's a reason the genre is so saturated right now. My original Vampire Survivors addiction is what earned the Steam Deck a permanent place in my weekly routines, and after 50-ish hours, I've only kept going from there. Jotunnslayer Hordes of Hel quickly became an obsession of mine once I picked it up, eating up all of my game time in October, and they just put out a huge new content update to pull me right back in. As a Vampire Survivors meets Diablo, this Viking-style Survivors game has sick graphics, great character variety, and endlessly addicting ability combos. It's a pretty intense game with a 45 FPS target being the best I could squeeze out of the deck. Warriors Abyss is more of a Hades-like, taking the best of Dynasty and Samurai Warriors heroes and putting them through 4 layers of hell to try to put an end to a demon set on destroying everything. Over 100 characters all play a bit differently, allowing you an insane amount of potential playtime if you wanted to unlock everything and try everything out, while providing an easy gateway back into a Muso obsession for me. Plus, the pared back visuals means it tends to run at a locked 60 FPS with its Steam Deck optimized profile. The next game you're about to see has some crazy flashing lights, so if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, go ahead and skip ahead to the timecode you see on screen. Sektori is a visual overstimulation blender, a bullet hell roguelike with some pretty challenging boss battles and addicting twin shooting action. I'm still struggling to make it through the bosses effectively, but I can't seem to put it down lately. Ball Pit, or Ball X Pit, is the first iteration I've seen in a very long time of one of my favorite underrated game genres, breakout style games. It is a roguelike game where you play almost like one of those fake mobile runner games you see all the commercials for, but you're also playing Breakout at the same time to defeat the waves. And then it has city builder aspects to it. I'm still fresh into it, but it is pretty unique and pretty addicting so far. Noobs Are Coming very much resembles Newgrounds games I'd play on school computers. Flash games being another formative form of gaming that kept me hooked on session games, by the way. And it takes your typical survivor-style game and reverses it, where you play as the boss as raids of players try to take you down. Roguelikes aren't the only games I tend to drown myself in on the deck. Lots of other smaller games are thoroughly worth my time. Monster Sanctuary combines Pokemon with Metroid for a beautiful creature collector platformer with loads of style. The Lady Dracula demo helped me realize that I don't actually care too much for Metroidvanias overall despite continuing to try them, and that I much more prefer the classic Castlevania style of gameplay. Coromon, Nexomon, and TemTem are all great Pokemon alternatives that keep the more classic spirit of older gen Pokemon games alive, and I go through waves of obsessing over these basically every summer. Crumble, Lunistice, and Hades are all movement-based platforming games, most of which I typically suck at. I've made some progress through some levels in Lunistice, but I can never really stick with it because it's kind of got that Sonic vibe to the gameplay, which I've always been terrible at. And then Crumble looks awesome. It's pretty cute, unique, but again, just the movement stuff just never fully clicks in my head. But Hades, for some reason, I blew through and used as my Game of the Year for our Game of the Year collab video. If you missed that, check out the link in the description below. TMNT Splintered Fate might just be the most faithful Hades-like I've ever played, with a really addictive loop and a solid roster to play as with added DLC. Play as the Turtles and some friends as you try to rescue Master Splinter and travel between dimensions. Of course, there's Hades itself, which I put many hours into waiting at airports during work events. Do I need to say anything about Balatro in the first place? Mullet MadJack is a very unique boomer shooter cross kind of with a roguelike where you make runs through cyberpunk megastructures trying to beat bosses and rescue princesses. The game oozes 80s and 90s themes and references out of every pixel, and it's absolutely worth a play. Whoops, I know, I'm mentioning roguelikes again. It's okay. It's okay. There's a lot of them to play on here. None of this to mention all of those PS2 session games I had mentioned before are just wonderful to play on the Steam Deck as well via PCSX2. While I do enjoy big story games and blockbuster experiences, I rarely have time for them. Whether I was a kid with responsible limitations placed on my playtime, a young adult in college and working multiple jobs, or a busy dad, session games are the biggest way I'm actually able to get any game time in most of the time. And it's truly thanks to the Steam Deck that I'm able to take advantage of these in a myriad of situations where I normally wouldn't be able to just sit at my PC and game. I don't have a long commute as I work from home. I don't spend a lot of time waiting at places. I have a stupid amount of gaming hardware available to me, so I never really thought the Steam Deck was for me. Then I wound up pre-ordering it out of FOMO on the second or third wave of pre-orders. And honestly, it went months at a time without actually being used, and I had to make conscious efforts to keep it charged, updated, and actually use it. But once I got hooked on Vampire Survivors, saw the potential, and started installing more session games on there, I use it nearly every day now. What are your favorite session games? Comment below. Join us on the forums to chat and unlock early access to videos and watch them ad-free. And remember to be kind, rewind.